Most people spend their entire lives chasing wealth. They work hard, they save, they hustle, they set goals. But no matter how hard they push, wealth always seems just out of reach. It slips through their fingers. It evades their best efforts. It shows up for others, but never fully arrives for them. And they start to believe that wealth is about strategy, about circumstance, about external factors. But the truth is, wealth starts in the mind. It begins with how you think, how you feel, how you respond, and most importantly, what your subconscious believes is possible for you. You can't outperform your internal programming. You can try. You can force success for a while. But if your subconscious is still wired for scarcity, you'll eventually sabotage yourself. If your core belief is that money is hard to get, hard to keep, or not meant for you, you'll find ways to make that belief true. Not because you want to, but because your brain is always working to stay in alignment with what it believes to be normal. Your brain is not designed for wealth. It's designed for safety, for survival, for familiarity. And if wealth feels unfamiliar, if abundance feels unsafe, your subconscious will fight it. It will reject it. It will pull you back to what's known, even if what's known is struggle. That's why people who win the lottery often lose it all within a few years. That's why entrepreneurs who make millions sometimes burn it to the ground. Their outer world changed, but their inner programming didn't. But the opposite is also true. When you rewire your mind for wealth, when you create new beliefs, new neural patterns, new financial identity, you stop chasing money and start attracting it. Not magically, not instantly, but systematically, consistently, naturally. Because now your actions, decisions, and emotions are aligned with wealth. You no longer repel it. You allow it. You expect it. You create the internal conditions that make it inevitable. Wealth is not just about what you do. It's about who you become. And becoming someone who attracts wealth is about training your brain to think differently, to let go of old programming, to install new patterns, to break the cycle of scarcity, and step into a new relationship with money. That's what this is about. Not quick fixes, not temporary motivation, but lasting change, deep transformation, the kind that shifts your thinking at the root. Because when you change your mind, you change your behavior. When you change your behavior, you change your results. And when your results change consistently, your life transforms permanently. The first step in reprogramming your brain to attract wealth is recognizing that your current relationship with money was not chosen. It was conditioned. From the time you were young, you were absorbing beliefs, watching, listening, taking in everything your environment told you about wealth, success, work, and what was or wasn't possible. And most of what you absorbed, unless you grew up in a space of abundance, was rooted in scarcity. You heard things like, money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work hard for every dollar. Rich people are greedy. We can't afford that. And those words weren't just conversations. They were instructions. They were coded messages that shape the way your mind interprets value, opportunity, risk, and reward. Every repeated phrase, every stressful conversation about bills, every moment of tension around spending, it all reinforced a framework, a mental blueprint. And unless you've consciously challenged that blueprint, it's still running. Even now, it's running in the background. And it's controlling more than you realize. Because your brain doesn't just store information, it creates meaning. And the meaning it assigns becomes your default. If you learned that money creates stress, your subconscious avoids it. If you were taught that it's selfish to want more, you'll feel guilty every time you try. If you observe that people lose money easily, you'll fear success because part of you believes it won't last. And this is why logic alone isn't enough. You can read all the books. You can recite all the affirmations. You can say, I want to be wealthy. But if the deeper part of your mind still sees wealth as unsafe, unfamiliar, or wrong, it will sabotage you, not always obviously. Sometimes subtly, sometimes cleverly, but always consistently. You'll make a little progress and then stall. You'll get an opportunity, but second guess it. You'll start something new and talk yourself out of it. Not because you're lazy, not because you're broken, but because you're still loyal to your old programming. And until that changes, your results won't. So how do you change it? You begin by observing, by noticing your patterns, not with judgment, but with curiosity. You start asking questions like, where did this belief come from? Is it true? Is it mine? Or did I inherit it? What would I have to believe instead to move forward? You watch how you respond when you receive money. Do you feel unworthy? Do you feel excited and then anxious? Do you find ways to spend it quickly? You observe how you react when others succeed. Do you celebrate them or resent them? Do you believe there's enough to go around or that their gain is your loss? Because every reaction reveals programming. Every emotional response is a window into what you've been taught to believe. And when you bring those beliefs into the light, they lose their grip. When you become aware of them, you begin to separate yourself from them. But awareness is only the beginning. The next step is interruption. You must interrupt the old pattern, break the loop, challenge the story. When a scarcity thought surfaces, like, I can't afford that, you pause, you catch it, and you ask, is that true or is it just familiar? You replace it with, how can I afford that? Or what would it take to earn more? Rewiring your brain means creating new associations. It means attaching new meaning to wealth. If money used to represent stress, now you reframe it as freedom, as options, as impact. You shift your internal dialogue, not just once, over and over, until the new becomes normal, until the unfamiliar becomes familiar. This is not about pretending. It's about repetition. Repetition is how the brain learns. It's how it builds neural pathways. It's how it replaces the old with the new. And the more you repeat an empowering belief out loud, in writing, in thought, the more your brain begins to accept it as truth. This is where daily conditioning becomes non-negotiable, because your subconscious is like soil. And every day, thoughts are being planted. If you don't plant intentionally, weeds grow by default. Scarcity grows by default. Fear grows by default. But if you flood your mind with abundance, with prosperity, with power, you begin to reshape the terrain. Your brain responds to repetition. That's how it was programmed. And that's how it must be reprogrammed, through daily habits, through mental rehearsal, through emotional reinforcement. You must feel the new belief, embody it, act as if it's already true. Because when belief and behavior align, change becomes inevitable. You begin walking differently, speaking differently, making decisions that match the new programming. You stop playing small. You stop shrinking. You stop apologizing for wanting more, because you've trained your brain to expect more, to allow more, to receive more. Wealth is attracted to certainty, and certainty comes from congruence. When your thoughts, beliefs, and actions are all moving in the same direction, you become magnetic, not desperate, not chasing, aligned. intentional, powerful. But this process doesn't happen overnight. It takes repetition. It takes awareness. It takes honesty. It takes a decision that says, I will no longer operate from the programming I was handed. I will install a new belief system, one that reflects the truth of who I am and what I'm here to create. Once you begin to interrupt the old programming, the next step is to build a new mental blueprint, one that is aligned with abundance, wealth, and financial freedom. You can't simply remove a limiting belief and leave a void. The brain will always seek to fill that space. If you don't fill it intentionally, it will revert to what's familiar. That's why replacing old thoughts with new ones is not optional. It's essential. But these new thoughts can't be vague. They can't be wishful. They must be designed with precision, because your brain doesn't respond to abstract goals. It responds to specific, emotionally charged, repeated messages. You must create a new identity, one that sees wealth not as a distant outcome, but as a natural result of who you are. And that identity begins with how you see yourself, not just in your thoughts, but in your self-image. If you still see yourself as someone who struggles with money, you'll subconsciously act in ways that reinforce that identity. If you see yourself as someone who is bad with money, you'll avoid making decisions, investing, learning, growing, because you're living in a narrative that says wealth isn't your story. But what if that changed? What if you started seeing yourself as someone who attracts wealth easily? Someone who is capable of creating, managing, multiplying money with clarity and confidence. Someone who expects money to show up because they built the habits, the standards, and the identity to support it. That's not delusion. That's alignment. To build this new identity, you must create a mental image of the wealthy version of yourself. Not just what they look like, but how they think, how they act, how they feel about money, how they show up in the world. Visualization is not fluff. It's a tool for rewiring the brain. When you visualize with detail, emotion, and consistency, you are building the neural pathways that support the new behavior. Your subconscious doesn't know the difference between a vividly imagined reality and an actual experience. That's why visualization is so powerful. When you see yourself confidently negotiating, building businesses, making wise investments, living in abundance, you begin to condition your mind to accept that version of reality. And when the mind accepts it, the behavior begins to match it. But visualization alone is not enough. You must pair it with aligned action, because identity is reinforced by behavior. If you see yourself as someone who manages money well, but your spending is impulsive, and your brain receives mixed signals, that incongruence weakens the new programming. But if your behavior matches your new beliefs, that congruence locks in the identity. So you must begin acting like the wealthy version of yourself before you feel ready. That doesn't mean pretending. That means aligning. How would they budget? How would they invest? How would they handle challenges? How would they speak about money? How would they treat opportunities? Begin embodying those traits now, not later. Because action is the language the subconscious mind understands best. Every time you make a decision in alignment with your new identity, you are proving to your brain that you are no longer who you were. And your brain starts to believe it. Not because you said it once, but because you acted like it over and over again. That's how rewiring becomes real. You must begin to reframe the way you feel about money. Most people carry guilt, shame, fear, or anxiety around wealth. They associate it with greed, with stress, with loss. But those emotions create friction. They block flow, and you cannot attract what you secretly resent or fear. You must rewire the emotional associations. Start by associating money with freedom, with options, with generosity, with peace. Replace the old stories. Money changes people. Wealth is selfish. You have to choose between purpose and profit with new beliefs. Wealth amplifies who you are. It expands your reach. It magnifies your impact. It gives you the ability to serve, to support, to lead without fear. And the more you reinforce those emotional associations, the easier it becomes to act in alignment with abundance. You no longer avoid opportunities. You no longer downplay your value. You no longer settle for less because you believe it's all you can have. You start to walk, talk, and decide like someone who is building a legacy, not just surviving a moment. Another powerful way to rewire your brain is through the language you use. Your words shape your reality. Every time you say, "I can't afford that," "I'm broke," "I'm not good with money," you are reinforcing scarcity. But when you change your language, you change your experience. Start saying, "I'm learning to manage money better. I'm creating new streams of income. I'm attracting the right opportunities. I'm aligned with wealth and abundance." Don't wait until you feel like it. Speak it until you believe it. Your words are not just sounds. They are instructions to your subconscious. Speak what you want to become. And do it daily, not once, not when you feel good, daily, in the morning, at night, in moments of doubt, in moments of clarity. Speak the truth of who you are becoming until it becomes the only truth your mind accepts. Repetition creates reality. You have to upgrade your financial standards because you will never rise above what you tolerate. If you tolerate financial chaos, you'll stay there. If you tolerate under-earning, underpricing, or undervaluing yourself, you'll keep getting paid less than you deserve. But the moment you raise your standard, the moment you say, "This is no longer acceptable," everything changes. That doesn't mean you suddenly make millions. It means you change your posture. You change how you show up. You set boundaries. You charge what you're worth. You walk away from things that don't match your value. You make decisions that honor your new level. And in doing so, you create a new financial normal. Reprogramming your brain for wealth means redefining what's normal for you, what's expected, what's familiar. Wealth must feel natural, not foreign. And you make it natural by practicing abundance in your thoughts, your speech, your decisions, and your identity, over and over until it becomes who you are. Now here's the key. After you've interrupted the old patterns and begun building a new internal blueprint, the next challenge is alignment. Reprogramming your brain to attract wealth isn't just about belief. It's about integration. Alignment means that your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors are all moving in the same direction. Most people want wealth, but their actions signal lack. Their habits signal avoidance. Their routines reflect the very scarcity they're trying to escape. And this internal conflict creates resistance. You can't move forward when part of you is still pulling back. You can't attract abundance if you're still acting like you expect to struggle. You can't build momentum if your thoughts and behaviors are always contradicting each other. Alignment solves that. Alignment clears the channel. One of the clearest signs of misalignment is self-sabotage. You make progress, then slow down. You get a financial win, then unconsciously find a way to lose it. You move forward, but something inside keeps pulling you off course. That's not bad luck. That's not random. That's misalignment between what you want and what your subconscious believes is safe. To solve this, you must start syncing your habits with your intentions. You say you want to be wealthy. What does that look like in your morning routine? What does that look like in your calendar, in your discipline, in how you treat your commitments? If you want to attract wealth, you must begin by living like someone who respects money, who expects abundance, who values time, who protects their energy. Start small. Consistency is more powerful than intensity. Create daily rituals that anchor you to the identity you're building. That could be 5 minutes reviewing your financial goals. It could be writing out a gratitude list for the money you do have. It could be reading something that reinforces an abundant mindset. The key is repetition, not perfection, not performance, just reinforcement. Another piece of alignment is emotional regulation. Wealth responds to clarity, not chaos. You cannot make powerful decisions when you're triggered. You cannot stay consistent when your emotions run the show. This doesn't mean ignoring your feelings. It means mastering your response. Every time you feel fear around money, pause. Don't react. Don't spiral. Observe it. Ask, is this fear coming from fact or from conditioning? Is this worry based on my current behavior or a story I've been telling myself for years? When you develop the habit of questioning your fear, you begin to weaken its grip. You begin to choose logic over loops. You can't be a powerful creator if you're constantly reacting. Reprogramming your brain means building a new emotional pattern, one where fear doesn't control you, where setbacks don't define you, and where your emotional state is rooted in faith, not frustration. Faith is a skill, not blind optimism, but trained focus. Faith is the ability to trust in what you are building, even when the results haven't fully appeared. Faith is waking up and taking aligned action, not because of what you see, but because of what you believe. And the more you walk in faith, the more your brain begins to normalize success, to expect it, to build around it. That's why your environment matters so much. It's hard to maintain alignment if your space, your habits, and your relationships all contradict the identity you're building. You must protect your space like it's sacred, because it is. The conversations you hear, the energy you absorb, the habits you see modeled, they're all reinforcing something, either abundance or scarcity. Your physical environment should reflect your future, not your past. Clean your space, remove clutter, upgrade what you can, create order. Because order sends a signal to your brain. We're in control here. We're preparing for more. Every time you walk into an environment that reflects your future self, you reinforce the message. Same with your circle. Are the people around you reinforcing scarcity or abundance? Are they normalizing excuses or results? Do they celebrate your wins or feel threatened by them? You don't have to cut everyone off, but you do have to curate your inner circle, because proximity is power, and who you spend time with is shaping what you believe is possible. You must begin to align your language, not just in what you say out loud, but in what you say to yourself. Internal dialogue is shaping your external destiny. You cannot build wealth while constantly repeating, I'm broke, I'm behind, I never get ahead, things never work out for me. Those phrases aren't harmless, they're hypnotic. They reinforce limitation. Replace them ruthlessly, relentlessly. Speak as if your success is already unfolding. I'm learning, I'm building. I'm becoming more disciplined. I'm attracting aligned opportunities, even if it feels awkward at first, even if your current circumstances contradict it. Speak your new reality into existence, not because of magic, but because your words shape your state, and your state shapes your decisions. And finally, align your vision. Not just big picture goals, but moment-to-moment intention. Repetition is what reprograms the brain. The more you rehearse your vision, mentally, emotionally, behaviorally, the more real it becomes. Spend time every day imagining your future in detail. Not as fantasy, but as practice. See it, feel it, prepare for it, and then act like it's already on the way. Because the truth is, it is. You're not waiting for wealth to find you. You're creating the internal alignment that allows it to flow to you. You're not chasing money. You're becoming the person that money naturally finds. Because wealth is not an accident. It's not a reward. It's a reflection of the internal world you've chosen to cultivate. Attracting wealth requires more than belief, identity, and emotional alignment. It requires a radical shift in how you relate to value. Because wealth doesn't come to those who just want money. It comes to those who create value, who exchange value, who multiply value. And most people never attract lasting wealth because they're still operating from a consumption mindset, not a creation mindset. They're focused on how much they can get, not how much they can give. The brain must be trained to seek opportunity, not security. It must be rewired to look for places to serve, not just places to survive. And this begins with how you see yourself in the world. Are you a consumer of value, waiting for the world to give you more? Or are you a producer of value, finding ways to contribute, to innovate, to solve? The difference in those mindsets is massive. One is passive. The other is powerful. You attract wealth by becoming useful, by solving problems, by creating solutions. The more valuable you become, the more options you create. The more options you have, the more power you hold. Value creation is the gateway to abundance, and you must train your brain to ask the right questions. Where can I serve? What can I improve? How can I create something people need? Most people are waiting for opportunity instead of becoming opportunity. They're hoping for a lucky break instead of developing the skills, habits, and mindset that make them valuable in any market. And because of that, they stay stuck. Not because the world is unfair, but because they haven't shifted from scarcity to service. You must begin to see every skill, every experience, every challenge you've overcome as part of your value bank. Your story is currency. Your insight is currency. Your ability to communicate, to lead, to adapt, to solve, all of it holds value. But if you never develop it, never package it, never offer it, you stay invisible. You stay underpaid. You stay undervalued, not because you aren't capable, but because you never positioned yourself as a solution. To reprogram your brain for wealth, you must fall in love with contribution, with solving problems, with creating something better than what existed before you showed up. You must become obsessed with making things work, with adding more than you take, with being a person of substance, because the marketplace rewards contribution, not effort alone, not time alone, but results, impact, value. This shift affects how you see money. Most people see money as the goal, but money is just a measurement of value. It's a mirror. It reflects the quality and consistency of the value you've produced over time. When you stop chasing the mirror and start focusing on what it reflects, your contribution, everything changes. You stop attaching your worth to how much you have, and you start anchoring it to how much you've grown, how much you've served, how much you've developed. Because when you become a person of consistent value, wealth becomes a byproduct, not a prize. You must reprogram how you think about wealth creation. Most people are taught to trade time for money, to earn hourly, to think in linear terms, work more hours, make more money. But this model is limited. It's capped. It's exhausting. And it's outdated. The wealthy think differently. They think in terms of leverage, of assets, of exponential growth. You must teach your brain to see beyond labor. Start asking, how can I build something once that pays me over and over? How can I solve a problem in a way that scales? How can I turn my knowledge into assets? These are the questions that unlock exponential opportunity. Not because they're magical, but because they force your brain to look beyond the default settings you were raised with. You must develop financial intelligence, not just saving and budgeting, but understanding how money moves, how wealth is built, how systems work, how taxes work, how investments grow, because your brain cannot attract what it doesn't understand. Ignorance breeds fear, and fear always pushes wealth away. The more confident you become in your ability to manage, grow, and multiply money, the more your brain stops treating wealth as a threat and starts welcoming it as a partner. You stop seeing it as something for them and start claiming it as something for you. Because the gap was never in your worth. It was in your thinking. And that thinking is shaped daily by what you read, by who you talk to, by the questions you ask, by the environment you live in. Every day, your brain is being trained. Either it's being trained for expansion or it's being trained for contraction. Either you are becoming more open to wealth or more comfortable with lack. The direction depends on what you allow into your mind. You must curate your inputs, feed your brain with books, mentors, conversations, and challenges that stretch you, that remind you of what's possible, that push you beyond your current comfort zone. Because repetition wires the mind. And the more you expose yourself to abundance, the more it begins to feel normal. And the moment abundance feels normal, you stop rejecting it. You stop sabotaging it. You stop shrinking when it arrives. Instead, you expand. You rise. You lead. You create more. Because now your brain is no longer fighting the flow of wealth. It's directing it. Reprogramming your brain to attract wealth isn't a one-time shift. It's not a motivational high. It's not a morning routine you try for a week. It's a lifestyle, a complete mental reconditioning that must be reinforced over and over until it becomes the foundation of how you think, how you act, how you respond to life. Because no matter how strong your intention is, your brain will always try to return to what is familiar. That's why the final phase in this process is reinforcement. Daily, conscious reinforcement. Because even when you've identified your limiting beliefs, replaced them with new ones, aligned your habits, elevated your environment, and taken powerful action, your old programming will still try to creep back in. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because transformation is an ongoing process, not a finished product. The mind always seeks to conserve energy. It wants to default to habits, to automation. And unless you have reprogrammed those habits through repetition and emotional intensity, the old pathways will remain stronger. This is why most people relapse into scarcity thinking even after a breakthrough. It's not failure, it's biology. And that's why reinforcement is essential. You must train your brain every single day. Just like you train your body in the gym, you must train your mind with precision, consistency, and focus. That means starting your day with intention, anchoring yourself to your new identity the moment you wake up, feeding your subconscious with language, vision, and emotion that align with abundance. Create a morning ritual that reinforces who you are becoming. Read a declaration of your wealth identity. Review your vision. Visualize your financial goals with emotion. Speak affirmations that shift your internal dialogue. Engage your senses. Feel the outcome as if it already exists. The brain doesn't just rewire through thought. It rewires through emotion. The more emotional energy you give to a thought, the faster it takes root. Throughout your day, protect your state. Your emotional state determines your decision-making power. And wealth requires powerful decisions. When you feel off, pause, reset, recalibrate. Ask yourself, what am I believing right now that's making me feel this way? What would the wealthy version of me do in this moment? This is the work. Not just knowing, but remembering. Not just learning, but reinforcing. Your brain will try to go back to old patterns. It will present the same doubts, the same fears, the same hesitation. Your job is not to resist them with force. It's to redirect them with certainty. You speak back. You redirect your focus. You refuse to entertain the thought that you are not enough, that you can't have more, that your time has passed. Those are echoes from your old life. They don't belong here anymore. Reinforcement requires tracking. You must track your progress, not just your outcomes. Every time you act in alignment with wealth, document it. Every time you make a bold decision, note it. Every time you shift a thought from scarcity to abundance, acknowledge it. Progress builds identity, and what you track, you reinforce. Wealth is not built in a moment. It's built through momentum. And momentum is fragile. It needs structure, systems, support. So build the structure that supports your new identity. Design your surroundings to reflect the wealth you're attracting. Even your posture matters. The way you walk into a room, the way you speak, the way you carry yourself. Confidence is not a personality trait. It's a muscle, one that is built and rebuilt through action, through posture, through self-respect. You must live like someone who already has what they're building, not fake it, but embody it. Because your nervous system needs to feel what success feels like before it will allow you to keep it. Reinforcement means upgrading your standards. Every time you tolerate something beneath your standard, you send a message to your subconscious that your old identity is still in charge. But every time you say no to what no longer serves you, you cast a vote for who you are becoming. You must become ruthless with what you allow into your mind, into your space, into your energy. Because you are not just protecting your mindset, you are programming your future. Every time you entertain a thought, an environment, a relationship, or a habit that contradicts wealth, you're slowing your growth. You're adding noise. You're feeding the wrong signal. Stay vigilant. Build in daily checkpoints. Reflect every night. Ask, did I act in alignment with wealth today? Where did I allow scarcity to win? What will I do differently tomorrow? This is not obsession. It's optimization. This is how high performers live. This is how financial leaders operate. Not by accident, by design. Finally, give yourself time. Real change is not microwavable. You're not just installing a new mindset. You're disassembling a decades-old identity. Be patient. Be consistent. Know that even when the results are invisible, the roots are growing. The brain changes slowly, then suddenly. And when it changes, your whole world begins to move differently. You've been taught to chase wealth, to grind for it, to hustle harder. But now you know the truth. Real wealth is not something you chase. It's something you align with, something you become, something you draw to you because your thoughts, your habits, your energy, and your identity are rooted in abundance, not lack, in power, not fear, in intention, not reaction. The old patterns, the ones rooted in scarcity, in limitation, in guilt, in shame, they don't serve you anymore. They were never yours to begin with. You inherited them. You absorbed them, but you don't have to keep them. You can let them go. You can rewire your brain, retrain your focus, and begin building a new identity, one that doesn't resist wealth, but receives it. Reprogramming your brain to attract wealth is not about magic. It's about mastery. It's about doing the work beneath the surface, the work no one sees but everyone feels. It's about facing the beliefs that have held you back, the emotions that have clouded your clarity, the habits that have kept you repeating cycles. But now you know how to break them. You know how to interrupt the loop. You know how to speak back to the voice that says, I can't. You know how to pause when fear tries to take over. You know how to bring yourself back to wealth, conscious thinking, to empowered decisions, to aligned action. This is not a one-time shift. It's a daily return, a daily remembering. Every time you wake up and decide, this is who I am now, this is what I expect, this is how I move, you reinforce the new identity. And with every day you stay consistent, you build momentum. Eventually, the old you, the one that doubted, the one that feared, the one that self-sabotaged, fades away. Not because you force it, but because you've evolved past it. Your frequency changes, your energy changes, your results change. And people will ask, what happened? And you'll know. It wasn't just strategy, it wasn't luck. It was a decision to reprogram your brain and to live as someone who welcomes wealth. Because now you know wealth isn't something external, it's something internal. It's not about getting, it's about becoming. And when you become the kind of person who operates from abundance, who values contribution, who honors their vision, who lives with discipline and alignment, wealth cannot help but show up. From this point forward, you don't wait. You don't wish. You build. You lead. You embody. And every time your brain tries to pull you back to the old, you remind it who's in charge.